Hey guys, it's KJ from Disney Mom Life. Welcome back. Today I have a review for you for Pop Century. We recently stayed there, but that was not our first time staying there. We've stayed at Pop, I think 3 or 4 times now. We stayed there a few times, only one time before the Skyliner. Now that it has a Skyliner, it's definitely a draw, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So today I'm going to be giving you a review of the Disney Pop Century Resort. I'm going to break down this review into several categories, and at the end I'm going to give it an overall score so you guys can get an idea of what I really think of it. If you would like to see a room tour of Pop Century or a resort tour of Pop Century, I will link those down below because we did film those as well. So if you guys are new to the channel, we do Disney videos every single Wednesday. Throughout the summer, we will be doing Disney videos every Tuesday and Wednesday, along with Disney cruise videos on Sundays, and then a lot of Shop With Me's and homemaking, home decor, that sort of thing. That's typically on Thursdays and Fridays. So we've got a lot of content coming your way. And by the way, for the Shop With Me's and for the home decor videos, there's always a lot of Disney involved. So I'll always point out all of the Disney stuff in my Shop With Me's, as well as showing you all of the Disney decor that's part of my home decor. So if you like any of those things, I would love to have you guys subscribe. If you are new, hit that thumbs up. It really helps spread the word about our channel and get it in front of other folks who might like Disney and Shop With Me's and all that kind of stuff. So that would really help us out. But without further ado, let's get into the Pop Century review. Now for just a little bit of history on the Pop Century Resort. It was built in 2003. It was the 4th value resort to be added to Walt Disney World, coming behind the 3 all-star resorts. And then it was refurbished in 2017, so just only a few years ago. So now that we've talked very briefly about the history, let's talk about the theming of this resort. So the Pop Century Resort is themed after several decades, ranging from the 50s all the way to the 90s. So they have different sections throughout the resort. They have the 50s section where you have Lady and the Tramp. They have the 60s section, which you'll see Baloo and Mowgli, but it's not really themed after Jungle Book. That just happened to have come out in the 60s, but it's very hippie centered, I guess. And then you have the 70s where you'll find the Mickey film. They also have a giant foosball, just like a giant foosball there too. That's the 70s section. There's also a Twister game there, which is really cool, which you can actually play with, which is really awesome. And then they have the 80s and 90s section, which are sort of combined. They share a pool and they sort of face each other. So you have a big Roger Rabbit statue, you have your computer pool, and then you have your Potato Heads. They look a little bit different than the ones in the Toy Story movies, but you have Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head in the 80s section. So like I said, those sections are sort of lumped together, but that's the overall theming. It's just through the decades. So when you walk into the main lobby and you look at the wall, the main wall, they'll have all the different decades and different little pieces of nostalgia throughout the years. And this is so fun to look at, especially depending on when you were born, if you were alive during some of these decades. Some of you may not have been born yet, but I'm an 80s baby, so there's a few things in the 80s from that section that I remember, but definitely the 90s, I was an 80s baby but a 90s kid, if that makes sense. So I love looking at the 90s stuff, and it's just really nostalgic for me. So that is really the theming. It just sort of has through the decades. And fun fact, if you didn't know this, Art of Animation was supposed to be part of these decades. I think it was supposed to be the 1900s through the 1940s, and actually that's why the Little Mermaid rooms are not suites. They're shaped similar to how the Pop Century Resort is set up, where you have 3 buildings shaped like T's, but then at some point they just decide to nix that, and obviously it's not the decades. Just look it up on YouTube and you can find the history there. But I thought that was a fun fact that it was supposed to have Art of Animation be the beginning of the decades of the 1900s, and then didn't happen. Like I said, that is the theming from the 50s to the 90s. Now, let's start with the rooms. So like I said, the resort was refurbished in 2017, so the rooms were given a refurbishment only a few years ago at the time of filming, and they have created so much more space in these rooms. So now the rooms have 2 beds. One is the Murphy bed, both are queen beds, which is really nice because you can put the Murphy bed up during the day or when you're not using it, or if you're only 2 people or 1 person and you don't need the Murphy bed, or maybe you're 2 people and just have a little one in a crib, you don't need to pull down the Murphy bed, so you really have a ton of space. As a family of 4, we have used the Murphy bed for the majority of our stays at Pop Century, and what's great is we are able to get our stroller into the room, which is so nice because some of the values, it's a little bit difficult to navigate. We stayed in a Little Mermaid room at Art of Animation last year, and we couldn't get the stroller in easily at all because even though the rooms were recently refurbished, they don't have a Murphy bed, so it was difficult to get the stroller in. So a huge positive if you have a double stroller is that it easily will get into the room with the Murphy bed up. The other thing about the Murphy bed is when it is up, it does have a table and chairs, which is nice. So you can utilize the table and chairs when you're not using the bed, when you're going to sleep, and then you can just put it up in the morning, and that's what we did, and we would just eat our breakfast or a snack or whatever at the table when we weren't using the bed. The other thing about the rooms, when the Murphy bed is down, there's only like a foot in between the beds. There's a floating nightstand in between, but there's like a foot in between the beds, so they are very close together. So if you do have a little one that is in a crib or a pack and play, it will not fit in the middle like it does in the deluxe or the moderate resorts. So just know that the baby, if you have a baby in a crib or a pack and play, they will have to go sort of at the foot of the bed. So that's really your only option. There's no other place to put it if we're using both beds. However, if the Murphy bed is up, of course, you have a lot more room to play with. As far as the theming of the rooms, it's not really in your face Disney as like the rest of the resort is, where there's just like a lot of Disney everywhere. I mean, when I say Disney everywhere, I mean like Disney characters. It just, you can tell you're at Disney. And in the Pop Century rooms, you have a picture of Mickey over your bed. It's just like, I think 3 Mickey heads, you know, like very pop, Funko Pop looking. And then it also, when you pull the Murphy bed down, you have a sleeping Pluto. But for the most part, there's not like a ton of Disney, so it's just like feels like a nice standard hotel room. And another thing I liked about the room, they do have a sliding door, so when you are going to the restroom, you can slide the door over, or if you're getting ready early in the morning and everybody else is still sleeping, you can just kind of sneak into that door. And the thing is, there is a little night light, so you don't have to like turn the light on and then shut the door. There's a little night light so you can see, so you would just be able to go into the room and then slide the door so you have privacy and you don't have to worry about that. There's also space under the bed that's always there, not the Murphy bed, the other bed. So you have a lot of space under there for storing your suitcases. And I will say, when they did refurbish it, they really utilized every inch of space in that room. There's lots of little cubby holes in different places you can put things, so that if you need storage, there really is a lot of storage in these rooms. So for, as a family of 4, again going on 5, we really have enough space in these refurbished rooms. So overall, really do like the rooms. Next up, we're going to talk about dining. Now, if you are familiar with value resorts, then you know that there's really only one option for you to eat at. There is like a giant food court, and it is quick service. And at the Pop Century Resort, it is called Everything Pop Shopping and Dining. So if you go into the resort, you'll see that the store is basically connected to the food court. They're right next to each other, but it's sort of very open. You can tell that they're separated, but it's just very open, and it sort of flows one right into the other. They do serve quick serve for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can mobile order. We've mobile ordered many times. It's great because you can just order your food like any other mobile order in Walt Disney World. You can just pick up your food, which is really easy. I am a big fan of their burger and fries. I don't know why, I just really like the burger and fries there. They're basically like any other quick serve burger and fries throughout Walt Disney World, but I mean, I like them. So for me, it works. There's also just a ton of different options. So in the morning, you'll have your Mickey waffles and eggs and bacon. You can also get breakfast sandwiches. There's just several different stations you can go to. And then for lunch and dinner, same thing. They change it over and they have different options. They'll have different pizzas. They'll have a grill section with things like burgers. I think there's about 3 or 4 main options. And then there's also a cold section that is always open. My kids like peanut butter and jelly, so sometimes we'll just get Uncrustables because it's just easy and it just is a great on-the-go snack or on-the-go lunch, and they have that. They also have things like yogurt and sliced apples and things like that, so we'll pick some of that up too. And then they also have different pastries and all different kinds of desserts that you'll see basically at a lot of the other values as well. So you do have a lot of options there. And there is one other place you can eat. It is the Petals Pool Bar, and that is right outside the main pool. While they have a variety of adult beverages, the food selection is quite slim. They have a couple of sandwich options. They have things like a Mickey pretzel, Mickey ice cream bar, Mickey ice cream sandwich, French fries, and chips, but that's pretty much all they have. So if you just want something quick and don't feel like going into the food court, even though, I mean, they're very close, like they're like right next to each other. If you don't feel like going in there, you can get a quick bite at the pool bar. Another thing that I did notice is that they do have a few TVs, like most of the pool bars on Walt Disney World property. And one of the days that we were there, I don't remember what game was on, it might have been baseball or something, and there were a few people watching. So if you just want to kind of have that bar type feeling, like get a drink, hang out, and, you know, watch the game, whatever game is on, you do that as well. So it does have like a nice pool bar vibe, and because it's right outside the pool gates, you sort of can get away from the kids if, let's say, you don't have kids on this trip. So that's also a plus too. Let's move on to transportation. One of the biggest perks about staying at Pop Century is the Disney Skyliner. It is easy access to the Skyliner. You share the station with Art of Animation, so there's like a bridge that sort of connects you to Art of Animation, and then you can get on the Skyliner that way. Especially if you are traveling with a single stroller or a tandem stroller, meaning like one behind the other, not side by side, or no stroller at all. It is a huge perk to stay at the Skyliner because you either don't have to worry about a stroller or you don't have to fold up your stroller. So when we stayed at Pop a couple years ago now, when I was pregnant with my son, and when he was maybe like 18 months old, we had a single stroller. So when we stayed there, it was so nice because we just could walk on to the Skyliner. So anytime we went to either Hollywood Studios or Epcot, it was just so nice to just roll right onto the Skyliner and not have to break down the stroller. If you know, you know. It's like one of the best things, not having to break down your stroller. So as far as the Skyliner, just if you are unaware, the Skyliner, you take it from Pop Century to the main hub, which is at Caribbean Beach, and then from there you'd have to get off at Caribbean Beach, and then you can either switch to go to Hollywood Studios or to the Riviera and then on to Epcot. Now you don't have to get off at the Riviera if you have a dining reservation at Topolino, which we did back when I was pregnant with my little guy and we were taking Winnie. We were able to go hop on the Skyliner and then take it to Caribbean Beach, and then we switched to go to the Epcot line and got off at the Riviera. If you're not getting off at the Riviera, you don't have to get off, so don't worry. You can just get on the Epcot line. It will stop at the Riviera and then it will just keep going, but you don't have to get out. So anyway, again, that is a huge perk, like the biggest perk, I think, personally, of staying at Pop Century. And then as far as transportation for the other parks, so that would be Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom, as well as Disney Springs and the water parks, you do have to take buses for that. They do have the main bus terminal is outside the store, so you would just walk over there and then you just pick up your bus from there. And you do have to break down your stroller. So again, if you do have a single or tandem or no stroller, the Skyliner is such a huge perk for not having to break down your stroller as opposed to the buses. So speaking of the buses, let's talk buses. So one thing about staying at a value, typically, if you're staying at a value, you're probably going to be spending a lot more time at the parks as opposed to the resort because there's not as many amenities. Like maybe you're coming back to the pool, but it's not, at least for us, we typically will spend more time at the resort if we're staying at a deluxe or moderate than we do if we're staying at a value. So that said, just my personal observation, it does seem that if you're staying at a value, the lines seem to be a lot longer. The bus lines seem to be a lot longer in the morning than they do at a deluxe or even a moderate. Now the moderate lines can get long as well, but really we see a big difference between the value and the deluxe hotels as far as the bus lines in the morning. So that is a bit of a negative. And also with the buses, something to be aware of, they're in the sun. You do have to wait in line, which I actually like when you stay at the deluxe and moderate. It's just sort of like open, like they have like little waiting areas for you, and it's just kind of, sometimes I feel like it's the Wild Wild West, like there's no line and all of the parks, like everybody waits in the same spot for each park. Like there's no Magic Kingdom line, Animal Kingdom line, and so on. There's just, everyone just sort of stands around. So I personally do sort of like if there are a lot of people that are going to the parks that day, regardless of what park or, what hotel you're staying at, I do like that the values do have a line. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I personally do because I am just not a fan of chaos. So that to me is a positive. However, the lines are not covered. You are in the sun. So a lot of times we use this opportunity to start getting our sunscreen on, or the other option is there are covered parts, but it's not on the actual line. So if you're going at a time where there's not a long line and you want to hang out in the shade, then I would recommend doing that. That's typically what we do. But if it's the early morning and there's a lot of people that are going to the parks, you do have to wait in line. So another thing I would recommend is maybe having one of you or your partner, whoever you're going with, another adult, wait in line, and then have your children and your partner, whoever, wait in their stroller in the shade, and then like as you're getting closer, just wheel a stroller like right up to the front and meet you there. That's just personally what we would do if it's like really hot and really sunny. I do not want to keep my kids in the sun, in the blaring sun, especially if it's going to be like a 10-15 minute wait. So Again, just be aware you're not covered if you're waiting in the actual line. During peak times, we've also noticed that the buses do get pretty crowded. Now, if you have little ones, you may be standing sometimes. I've been on those buses pregnant and having to stand, which if you know, you know, it's like uncomfortable to stand, especially if you're also holding a toddler. So just be aware that the buses can get crowded. So I suggest if you're going to go during those peak times, get there early. That's just me, or wait till the morning rush is over. Like I kind of feel like it has to either be the first or like, you know, wait for the rush to pass. But that's just a few things I wanted to note about the buses. Let's move on to pools. Now there are 3 pools at the Pop Century Resort. They have their main pool, which is their Hippy Dippy pool, and it's shaped like a big flower. It's in the 60s section, which is why it is shaped like a flower, like the Hippy Dippy pool. This is also where poolside activities occur. They also have activities like ping pong. There's ping pong tables over there and things like that. So this is again the main pool. So it's usually the most crowded. Right behind the Hippy Dippy pool, they have it's sort of like a kiddie pool slash splash pad, sort of. It's like almost like it's not even a wading pool. It might be like 3 to 6 inches deep, if it's even that deep. And it's shaped like a circle, and then it just has like different fountains like coming out. There's nothing really special about it. However, if you don't mind, you can just walk across the bridge. It's not that far, and especially depending on where your room is. If you're closer to the Skyliner, you can just walk right across the bridge, and right at the back, like right across the bridge at the back of the Art of Animation Resort, they do have the Finding Nemo splash pad, which I think is excellent. I think it's so fun. There's so many different character like fountains, if you will, that the kids can interact with and play with. So if your kids are really into that, I would suggest just walking across the bridge and playing over there. But if your kids don't really care, then this place is, you know, it's fine. It's sort of shaded, and you know, it gets the job done. It's a place that's not in the main pool. So if your kids don't want to have to wear their floaties or whatever, they can just play over here. The next pool is located in the 50s section, and that is shaped like a giant bowling pin. It's really cool. The theming over there is bowling, and this one I think tends to be the quietest one because it's in the 50s section, which only has like those buildings. If you were to walk into Art of Animation, the 50s section is to your right, and that's it. And then straight back is the 60s, and then you have to your left the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So this pool tends to be the quietest. It's right by Lady and the Tramp, which is one of my favorite Disney movies, some of my favorite Disney characters. So I love that section. But it definitely, if you want a more quiet experience at the pool, that would be the bowling ball pool or the bowling pin pool. And then the third pool is located in the 80s and 90s section, and it is a computer pool. So there's nothing significant about this pool. It's just shaped like a giant square because it's supposed to be like a computer monitor, and they actually have right outside the pool like a giant keyboard. So it, you know, it doesn't do anything. You can't interact with it, but it still looks cool. It looks like, you know, like a giant computer. And this is also what we like to call the Roger Rabbit pool because there is a giant figure of Roger Rabbit right outside the pool. This is the pool that we have spent the most time at, and it does depend on the time of day. It does get a little bit quieter depending on when you are there, but compared to the other 2 pools, this one I'd say is somewhere in the middle. The Hippy Dippy pool is definitely the most crowded. Then this one has a decent amount of people because you have to remember people are either going to be going probably to the Hippy Dippy pool or to this one. They're not going to be going to the 50s pool most likely. So you're going to have people in the 70s, 80s, and 90s coming to this pool. So just keep that in mind. But we've liked it when we stayed there. When we stayed in the 80s section, that's the pool that we used, and we enjoyed it very much. Next up, let's talk amenities. So this resort has things like the campfires, which basically every resort has, where you can roast marshmallows. It also has the movie Under the Stars. It does have a pretty nice playground. Not all resorts have playgrounds, but this one does, which can be a great place for your little ones to get their wiggles out. And it's also shaded, which is so nice. Like, it is like completely in the shade. And it is located near the main building, but towards like the 70s section, like sort of in between the 2 of them. Pop Century does not have a fitness center, so if you are looking to work out, you will have to do it on your own. They do have a jogging trail, which does go around Pop Century and Art of Animation. It sort of goes around Hourglass Lake. Like, I'm pretty sure that's like the trail. So you can do that, but they do not have a fitness center. And speaking of Hourglass Lake, unlike some other lakes on property, you cannot fish, you cannot boat. This lake is strictly for looking at, so you cannot do any kind of water activities. Even if you bring your own supplies, you're not allowed to do it. So keep in mind, if you do want to do something like rent a pontoon boat, which we have done, you can do that over near the Beach and Yacht Club. You can do it over near the Contemporary. There's just other places you can do it, but we've personally done it a few times out of the Beach and Yacht Club side. Over there we rented a pontoon boat, which highly recommend, and I will link that video down below because I did do a whole video on that, but I digress. But just like I said, Hourglass Lake, the only thing you can do is look at it or run the jogging trail around it. They also have an arcade, and let me tell you something, I never really have a reason to go to the arcade, but we did film a tour of Pop Century, so make sure you guys check that out. It is a huge arcade. Like, it is so big. I could not believe how far back it went. So if you guys like, you know, arcade games and stuff, definitely check it out. It will certainly provide you with a decent amount of entertainment. Like, this thing was huge. I couldn't believe it. And the last thing I want to note about the amenities, so mousekeeping only comes every other day, as opposed to, say, at the Deluxe, they come every day. At the Value, they come every other day. Now, back in the day, pre-pandemic, you actually could opt out of mousekeeping, and they would give you a $10 gift card, Disney gift card, towards either you could use it for anything. You could use it towards your room bill or towards merchandise or dining, whatever you wanted, if you opted out of mousekeeping. They no longer do that. So let's say you were staying for 5 nights, they wouldn't count the first night, but you're staying 4 other nights, you could get a $40 gift card, which we've done on certain trips. We've usually done it maybe if we were staying only for like a couple nights. So we would get like a $10 gift card or sometimes a $20 gift card because we really didn't need someone to come to the room. So now, not only do they no longer offer that, but they only have mousekeeping every other day. That said, if you do need things like towels or toilet paper or whatever else, you can call housekeeping and they will bring it to your room, but they do not come every day to clean your room. But again, that said, if you notice now, the room signs on the doors no longer say do not disturb, they say room occupied. So I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe they still come and do a room check every day, but they don't actually clean your room. So they may pop in your room just to pop in. Again, I don't know the specifics on this. I've just been seeing it on social media that now, and I've noticed the room signs now say room occupied as opposed to do not disturb. So just keep in mind, even if you see them poking their head in, they're not coming to clean every day. They might just be doing a room check. Next up, let's talk stores. And when I say stores, I really mean store, one store. They have everything pop, shopping, and dining. It's a pretty big store. It is connected to the dining, like I mentioned when I was talking about dining. And if you walk in, you can either go right or left, and it has like standard things. It has like a toy section. It has actually has a section where you can buy things like themed towards Pop Century, the actual resort, toiletries and medicine and that kind of thing. So they have things like that. You actually can buy wine there, bottles of wine. You can buy different food items, so it has a lot to offer. But again, it's only one store. So if that matters to you, it's only one store. Now I'm going to break down this review into 4 categories: food, service, atmosphere, and value. And if you follow our dining reviews, we do our reviews very similar. We have 4 categories, the same 4 categories. So if you're not checking our dining reviews, make sure you check them out because we do tons of them. But that said, back to the resort reviews. So food, atmosphere, value, and service. So with those 4 categories, I will give them a score of 1 through 10, and then I will give you guys an overall score so you guys can get an idea of what I really think of the Pop Century Resort. So for food, there's not many options. It's your standard quick service. They also have the pool bar. So I'm just gonna give food an 8. I like the quick service food. It's nothing special, it's nothing unique, but like I mentioned earlier, I do like the burger and fries. So I do enjoy, you know, a good Mickey waffle and eggs and bacon. And their breakfast sandwiches were good. I do like some of the cold options they have, like the easy grab and go, the peanut butter and jelly, Uncrustables, the apples and caramel. That's something else I really like getting from there. So I'm just gonna give it an 8. It's good. Nothing outstanding. Now, service. We've always had a good experience at Pop Century. The check-in process is always pretty seamless. We've been really lucky where we've gotten to have our rooms seem to be ready, honestly, at Pop Century, like almost every time when we get there. We've rarely had an instance where our room wasn't ready, regardless of what time we were there, or we didn't have to wait very long. At the most, maybe an hour, but we really do appreciate the front desk service there. They make things really smooth, really easy. As far as like service in, say, like the dining hall or at the store, nothing has stood out. Everyone's just friendly, your standard, typical Disney service. And then as far as mousekeeping, because it's every other day, I feel like I have to deduct a couple points. Like, it is nice, and it was nice to have it every day, or it was nice to opt out of it and get those $10 gift cards. So I feel like I have to deduct a few points there. So for service, I will give service an 8. Next is atmosphere. I would say I do enjoy going here. The kids absolutely love it. They love the theming. You have the Skyliner view, which is so nice. There's a lot of, great photo ops there. And I would say probably an 8 for atmosphere. Nothing stands out other than the Skyliner, which if you can get a Skyliner view, like that's really great. But, just typical value resort. So I would give it an 8. So as far as value, I'm going to give value a 9. For a value resort, you have the Skyliner. It just is such a huge perk that I just feel like it deserves bonus points there. So I really do like that it has the Skyliner. I can't say that enough. That's really why when we are going on a trip that we want to stay at a value at for whatever reason, we like staying at Pop. Definitely would give the value a 9. You really are getting a good bang for your buck. If you don't plan to spend a lot of time at the resort, like if you only plan to come back maybe for a couple hours just to go in the pool, but you really, this is going to be a park heavy trip for you, I think Pop is a great resort to stay at. And again, for that, I will give it a 9 for value because you're paying value prices, the value resort prices, and you just can't beat staying on the Skyliner. So that is an overall score of an 8.25. The Pop Century Resort is really one of our favorite values. I can't say that enough. I can't say enough about the Skyliner. We really, really enjoy being on the Skyliner. We have stayed at all these Skyliner resorts, so that is Pop Century, Art of Animation, Caribbean Beach, and Riviera. We've stayed at all 4 of them, and it's just such a huge perk. So especially if you're staying at a value, like you just can't beat being on the Skyliner. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this review. This is my first time ever doing a Disney resort review, so please let me know in the comments down below if you enjoy these. We have stayed at almost every single resort. There's still a few more I have to check off. John has stayed at more than me. I think John has like 2 left to check off, or I might have like 4 or 5. So we have stayed at really almost every resort. We've stayed at all the values, all of the moderates, and John has stayed at almost all of the deluxe hotels. Like I said, I think I still have like 4 left, and John might have 1 or 2. I think just Saratoga Springs and Yacht Club are the only ones he hasn't stayed at. But anyway, I digress. All of that said, I really do hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you found it helpful. If you guys are new to the channel, if you guys like Disney content, I would really love to have you guys subscribe. Again, give the video a thumbs up. It really helps spread the word about our channel. It gets it in front of other Disney loving folks. And with that, I'll see you guys real soon. Bye!